Hello, and welcome to Bhagavatam. My name is Rohit, and this is the Path of Divine Love. So, we're going to talk about something very important today. What's in a name? You might say, well, not a big deal, right? Call me by any other name, Shakespeare said, and a rose by any other name would smell as sweet. And that's true. And yet, the name holds a lot of significance. Companies, for example, believe a lot in the power of branding. And all brands begin with a name. The name of a company has power. Companies like Apple, like Tesla, right? They're all known to be extremely powerful, and we recognize them by their name. Well, the name of a country has a lot of power too. People are proud to belong to a certain country or want to be part of a certain country. And then names can also be used in a derogatory way. When we call somebody names, that can be very harmful. That can be very painful. When somebody calls you stupid, calls you an idiot, or something like that, right? Someone says you're fat and ugly. Those kind of names can be very, very hurtful, more damaging than even physical violence. So, I would really say a name can be the most powerful thing that we have with us. The names we call ourselves, the names we call others, the names that help us recognize a thing for what it is. Like if you didn't know what a tree is versus what a car is or what the sky is, we give names to everything. Every child learns through names. And through those names, they learn to identify different things. And as we identify different things, we begin to understand the world around us. So, the names that we call each other and we call ourselves can be extremely powerful. The names with which we understand the world can be very powerful. But what's the most powerful name of all? The ultimate name is known to be the name of God. And some understand that this name is so powerful that you cannot even utter it. Others have only one name for God, and some religions have many names for God. Some say that God is great, and that's their name. And others, like in the Vedas, have thousands of names for God, by which they describe the various qualities of God. Not just that God is great, but God is beautiful and wise and kind, and so many other qualities by which God is known. And these names, according to the Vedas, are no different than God. When we chant the names of God, we connect with and commune with God. The name of God, according to the Vedas, cleanses the heart. When you're in contact with something of very high vibration, it has a tremendous power on you. When you're in touch with God, communing with God, that communion, that connection, that presence that is there through that name has a tremendous power upon you. And it cleanses the heart. And it frees us and purifies us from our karma. Ultimately, it frees us from the cycle of birth and death and brings us back to God. So join us on this grand adventure into the ancient wisdom of the Vedas, which were revealed to us through the wisest people on the planet. So, as we begin the narrative of the Bhagavatam, it started with this particular scene. A scene in which the great king Parikshit, who is kneeling there in front of the wise sage Sukadeva, who's sitting on the throne, that seat of honor that was given to him by all the sages and the wise people of that time. The king had come inquiring as to the nature of human existence. He wanted to know, what should a person do to prepare for death. He was about to die in 7 days. He'd been cursed. And he wondered what would happen at that time. He had no idea. And so he wanted to inquire from the wisest minds of all. In the previous episode, we heard about Ajamil and how Ajamil was about to die, or rather dying, when he saw these very scary looking characters around him. They'd come to take his soul. Those were the agents of Yamaraj. Yama is known to be the Lord of Death in the Vedas. There are different names in different scriptures, I know. But in the Vedas, he's known as Yama, or the King of Death, Yamaraj. Raja means king. Now, his agents, his representatives, had come to take the soul of Ajamil when they were stopped by the agents of Vishnu, the agents of God. And they said, oh, you can't take this guy. And they said, what do you mean you can't take this guy? He's committed all kinds of felonies, all kinds of crimes, all kinds of horrible deeds. He needs to be punished. He needs to be taught a lesson. So this is the scene in which that is occurring. The ones on the left are the agents of Vishnu. Vishnu being the divine being or God, supreme being, and the ones on the right are the agents of Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. So that being the scene, this discussion takes place between the two parties in which the servants of God, of Vishnu, say that no, this person chanted the name of our master, chanted the name of God, chanted the name of Narayan in the last moments as he was dying. And although he chanted without knowing why he was chanting, because he had a son called Narayan. He had given his son that name. That is the name of Vishnu, of God. And because he was chanting God's name with no motive, with no offense, he was due for liberation. And they said, what nonsense. What utter nonsense. If someone has committed the most horrible of deeds, but he chants the name of God, does that mean that he's going to suddenly be, forgiven for everything and he'll just go back to God? And they said, yeah, but he will have to reform himself. And now we will see what he does next. So they let him go. The servants of Vishnu freed this dying person, Ajamil, and Ajamil, when he came out of that state, having seen this and heard this whole situation, he reformed his life. He actually gave up the bad habits that he had, the life of robbery and gambling, and that he had married a prostitute. He gave up all of that. And he went to some holy places like Haridwar, where he devoted his life to God. Once again, at the end of his life, he went back to God. Now, that reformation was very important. It's not just that we can do anything we want and at the end of life chant the names of God and there we are. Hey, hallelujah. It's all fine and dandy. No, we do need to reform and change our ways and really show our love for God, our sincerity for and devotion for God. So now the king Parikshit, who we talked about earlier, asks the great sage Sukdev, he says, Yamaraj is the controller of all living entities in terms of their religious and irreligious or good and bad karma, but his order has been foiled. When his servants informed him of their defeat by the Vishnu Dutas, the servants of Vishnu who had stopped them from arresting Ajamil, what did he reply? So Shukdev now says, Yamraj is the overseer of all karmic activities, but his order being foiled, he informed his servants who were baffled and defeated. He informed them when they asked him, they asked, well, how many rulers are there in this material world and how many are responsible for the various results of karmic activities? We thought you're the only one in charge. And they said, there seems to be someone else too. And how can it be that there are many such justices or rulers who are going to decide on what punishment? Imagine if you had a court And we do actually we have like a lower court that will make a judgment, and then there'll be a higher court that makes a higher judgment. Then there's the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is supposed to be the ultimate authority, and just as with Yamaraj, he's supposed to be in this universe the ultimate authority. You see, the Supreme Being, God, unlike what most religions say, the Vedas say he's not interfering in the ways of the world unless somebody directly calls out to him, unless somebody devotes themselves to that Supreme Being. Doesn't interfere. We have freedom, we have free will to do whatever we want. Absolutely whatever you want. You can be anything, do anything. You can hate God, love God. You have absolute freedom. But the day you turn to him and call out his name with deep feeling and emotion, with deep love, then he takes a personal interest to get you out of here, to show you the path by which you may attain moksha or liberation from this world. So they're asking, who is the supreme dispenser of justice? Right? And we need to know. Otherwise, everyone will have to both be punished and rewarded. Somebody will say, oh, they're punished, or they say they're rewarded. There has to be one central emperor, one supreme controller to guide all the judges. That's what the servants of Yamaraja are saying to him. He says, we are bewildered. It was our understanding that you are that supreme judge and that you would have jurisdiction even over the demigods. You are the supreme authority who discriminates between the pious and impious activities of all human beings. We were bringing the most sinful Ajamil toward the hellish planets following your order when 4 beautiful persons from Vishnu forcibly cut the knots of the ropes which we were arresting him with. So let me explain a couple of things here. When they say the hellish planets in the Vedas, they mean places where, yes, there is some punishment for someone who's performed really heinous activities, with the hope that that person will be in reform, just as when we send them to jail out here, we hope that that will reform them. However, it doesn't always. It doesn't quite work like that. And therefore, there are so many more atrocious activities that happen on this earth. That path isn't necessarily the most effective, and yet that's just kind of how it's been set up. Now, the concept in the Vedas is not of an eternal hell or a place of damnation or a place of just banishing people and just, getting rid of them and sending them there forever. No. They believe in a compassionate universe, a universe that is just and fair, and in which those who have done wrong to others must experience a consequence for their action. They must experience that which they have caused to others. And very often that experience can be had in this very life itself, but at times it doesn't happen. Sometimes people say, oh, well, that person got away with this horrible, atrocious act, and now what will happen to them? Well, they will experience that in the afterlife. And then they'll get to come back here and get another chance, and another chance, and another chance to rectify themselves. That's why I say we live in a compassionate universe. It's set up in a way that we may learn and we may grow and we may change and reform ourselves, and yet no one is forced. So Yamaraj says that when he's being asked, right, about these 4 beings, he says very patiently, my dear servants, you have accepted me as the supreme, but factually I am not. Above me and above all other demigods, see, the concept in the Vedas of the demigods is that there are many, many beings who are given the power and the ability to manage the affairs of the universe, so whether that's the elements, the sun, the moon, the rain, the plants, and so many different things that have to happen in the administration of the universe. There are different demigods who are given that task. Just like there are many people in government who handle different affairs of government, in much the same way there are different demigods who handle the affairs of the universe, just like you do with a country. So he says, above me and above all the other demigods is the one supreme master and controller. From him come Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. They are the three highest beings in each universe, who are in charge of the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of this universe. He, that supreme being, is like the two threads that form the length and breadth of a woven cloth. The entire world is controlled by him, just as a bull is controlled by a rope in its nose. So just to get you started with what they're talking about here, on the left here is Brahma, in this middle is Vishnu, and on the right is Shiva. Now, what is the significance of this woven cloth and the two threads? Well, first let's take a look at what a woven cloth looks like. This is a woven cloth made of two threads. One thread is going horizontally, the other is going vertically. And as they weave together, they create the fabric. So similarly, the fabric of the universe is like this woven cloth. Now, what are those? What are those threads? I have a very interesting proposition here, that those threads might be not just like a woven cloth or a woven basket, but they might be similar to DNA. And if you look at this strand of DNA here, there are two strands weaving together, creating the DNA that then is the instructions for how our body is to be constructed, what gives it shape, what characteristics it will have. Everything else everything is encoded within that DNA. The supreme being is like the DNA of the universe, is woven into every atom of the creation and forms the very fabric of all that is. The Vedas say that that supreme being is everywhere, in everything, in everyone. There is nowhere that he is not. Just as your DNA is present in every molecule, every aspect of your body, the supreme being is woven into every aspect of the creation, is the energy of the universe. The scientists tell us the universe is made of energy. That energy is God. That is one aspect of God, the impersonal aspect of God. However, there is a personal aspect of God, and that first part of that personal aspect begins by the presence of God within us. Whenever we're ready to turn to God, God is right here within us. Not far away out there somewhere, but within us. And then God also exists as a being who is outside us. So three aspects: in everything, in everyone, and yet existing in the spiritual world, which is outside the material world, which is the world where there is no birth or death or old age or disease. There is no suffering, which is the land that we belong to and which is where we are being called to. And this Bhagavatam is the instruction manual to get us there. So that supreme being is what he's referring to. He says there is no one greater than him. Just as the driver of a bullock cart, now you don't have bullock carts in today's times, but in earlier times, maybe 100 years ago, and even in some parts of India now, they don't use the tractors. They still use the two bulls and a cart behind them, which has a plow or a cart. Just as the driver of a bullock cart ties ropes through the nostrils of his bulls to control them, the supreme Godhead, the supreme being, binds all beings through the ropes of his words in the Vedas. So we are all bound by these instructions in the Vedas. All beings worship him by offering him their understanding, or rather, all worship him according to their understanding. I, Yamaraja, Indra, the king of heaven, and many demigods and saintly people, rishis, who are free from the influence of the modes of passion and ignorance, who are free from the influence of this world, Like all of us, we're under the influence of this world. We're under the modes of nature, as the Vedas call it, which means that we are affected by whatever's going on, the energy of people around us, the energy of the place we're in, the energy of the environment, nature, all of that affects us, right? We are under the influence of the modes of nature. And although we are, that is to say, these personalities like Yamaraja and Indra, these many highly evolved beings are beyond the influence of the material world. We are in the mode of goodness. We cannot understand the activities of the Supreme Godhead. What then is to be said of others who, under illusion, merely speculate to know God? See, most people in today's time fall into that category of those who speculate to know God. I don't know God. You don't know God. We can read some books and we can argue all we want. You might say, I believe in the Bible, and someone might say, I believe in the Quran, and someone else might say, I believe in the Bhagavad Gita, and based on our beliefs, we can argue. What will our beliefs be? They are our interpretations of what we are reading in those books. But how much can you talk about a place that you've never been to? Like, you can talk about, let's say, a city like Paris, right? How well can you talk about Paris just by the books you read about it? You can read a book from one author, I can read from another author, someone else might read from another author. If you've never been there, you have no first-hand experience. And so what he's saying is this, that most people actually just speculate. They have opinions. And opinions, as you might know, are the lowest form of intelligence. Opinions don't really matter. You can have an opinion about anything. And it may be based on fact or not based on fact. It may be based on pure speculation or imagination. It doesn't matter. An opinion's an opinion. So there's opinion. And then there is something you've read, interpretation. And then there is actual experience. I would say, and I wonder, maybe you'll agree, that the highest form is experience. When you have directly had first-hand experience of God, you are in a better position to speak about God than someone who's merely read a book or simply has an opinion. I think we can agree on this one. So Yamaraj continues here. He says, as the different limbs of the body cannot see the eyes, so your hands cannot see your eyes, your feet cannot see your eyes, the living entities who are part of God cannot see the Supreme Lord who is situated in their heart. He cannot be known by the senses, the mind, by thoughts or words. You see, these instruments we have are not adequate to truly understand God. That's why there are many processes of meditation, processes of enlightenment, processes of awakening, processes of devotion, processes in which He reveals Himself to us, not by our effort, but by His grace. Yamaraj continues, He is self-sufficient and fully independent. So He reveals Himself to whoever He wants to reveal Himself to. And doesn't to whoever He doesn't want to. He is self-sufficient. He doesn't need us. We need Him. And He's fully independent. Doesn't require anything from anybody. He doesn't need us to sit here and bow down to Him or worship Him or call His name or anything. He doesn't need us. We need Him. And He has given us these tools by which we can call out to Him, by which we can approach Him, by which we can know Him. He is the master of everyone and everything. He has form, qualities, and features. There are many who will say God has no form. He's nirgun. But you can't say that. Because to say that He doesn't have something that you have means you have more than God has. How is that possible? That which made you cannot have form, but you can have form? What kind of ridiculousness is that? He can do anything He wants. He can be anything He wants. If He wants to have form, He can have form. He wants to be formless, He can be formless. If He wants to have both form and formlessness, that too is possible for God. We cannot limit Him by our own thoughts and opinions and imagination. So Yamaraj says, he has form, qualities, and features. His servants and messengers possess beautiful bodily features and have transcendental qualities. They wander within this world independent of the modes of or the influence of nature. They are very rarely seen. They protect the devotees of God from envious persons, from natural disturbances, and even from my jurisdiction. This is a very important line to understand. That those who have devoted themselves to God, that those who have surrendered to God, those who have completely linked with, united with, and have become one in love with God, they are protected always. And this is not just some wishful thinking, and this is not just some statement here, but it's something I've seen and experienced again and again. It's almost as if without any qualification, without any effort, without any deservingness on my part, he blesses me. He blesses all of us who walk this path of surrender, this path of devotion, this path of love. Because as we walk this path, grace is showered upon us. To the degree that we open our hearts, to the degree that we allow him to enter us and become the epicenter of our lives, he takes over and grace fills us. Grace is his energy, his presence coming within us, enlightening us, awakening us, transforming us from within. That which is so difficult to do from the outside becomes so easy through the path of grace, through the path of surrender, because surrender is what allows that grace to enter. It's like emptying the cup. When the cup is full, you cannot put anything more in it. What is our cup full of? Our cup is full of our ego. And it is our ego that prevents that grace from entering. So as we empty the cup of our ego, as we begin to understand that I am nothing, I am worthless, I am no one. And in that mood, we surrender to God and we accept this ultimate reality, because what are we? We're nothing. We're a tiny speck in the universe. And when we accept that, a lot of times when people are depressed, they feel that. And nobody tells them, you're on to the truth, my friend. You're on to the truth. But that truth, if understood without God, without the context, will cause you depression. That same truth, when seen in the context of God, will cause surrender. It will cause humility. It will cause you to completely devote yourself to God, to know that you are nothing without him. So Yamaraj says, my dear servants, beyond all religious principles are the transcendental principles known as Bhagavat Dharma. That's what we are reading about, Bhagavatam. Or surrender to the Supreme Godhead and love for him. These principles are beyond the contamination of material nature. They are very confidential and difficult for ordinary human beings to understand. But if by chance one fortunately understands, then he is immediately liberated and returns home back to God. The path of divine love, or bhakti yoga, begins with the chanting of the name of God. This is the ultimate religious principle for all living entities in human society. That's right. What is the chanting of the name of God? According to the Vedas, God has many names, thousands of names. And Yamaraj says, just see how glorious is the chanting of the holy name of God. The greatly sinful Ajamil chanted only to call his son, not knowing that he was chanting the Lord's holy name. Nevertheless, by chanting Narayan, 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 he was immediately saved from the ropes of death. One is easily relieved from all karmic and sinful reactions by chanting the holy name of God, as well as chanting about his qualities and activities. Even if one chants with improper pronunciation or without understanding, he will achieve relief from material bondage if he chants without offense. Those who are bewildered by the illusions of this world, dharma, artha, kama, moksha, and by religious rituals or academic speculation, cannot understand the significance of devotion, of chanting, and surrendering to the Supreme Being. What is he saying here? Those who are bewildered by the illusions of this world, such as doing your duties, going for your job, earning money, being successful, and then enjoying your senses, kama, right? And ultimately, when you realize all of that, oh, I want moksha, I want liberation. And so now I want to be a monk or a priest or something like that. But those who are bewildered by all of these cannot understand the significance of devotion to God, of chanting the names of God, of surrendering to God. Those who are on the path of devotion or bhakti are not within my jurisdiction for punishment, Yamaraj says. Generally, they never commit sinful activities, but even if by mistake or because of bewilderment or illusion, because we're all human and we are likely to fall under bewilderment and illusion of this world. It can happen even to the most best intentioned of us. We may have come on the path of God, but it doesn't mean we will not fall from that path. That is very, very possible. And yet he says here, even if by mistake or because of bewilderment or illusion they sometimes commit sinful acts, they are protected from karmic reactions because they always chant the names of God. So what are those names? There are many: Krishna, Rama, Hari, Narayan, Vishnu. So many names are there. The most popular name mentioned for this time that we live in, Kali Yuga, that's this age of Kali, this age of quarrel, hypocrisy, and dissension that started about 5,000 years ago and has a long ways to go. It says the most powerful name to chant in this particular age is the name of Krishna, the Hare Krishna mantra. Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Harer Nama, Eva Kevalam. Kalo Nasteva, 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 Gatir Anyata. Gati means path. There is no other path that will be as effective as the chanting of Harer Nam, the name of Hari. That is Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. This mantra has 3 words in it, Hare, Krishna, and Rama. The first, Hare, refers to the beloved, the feminine aspect of God, which is known as Radha. The second, Krishna, means the all-attractive one. And Rama, well, there's many interpretations to that word. Does it refer to Balaram, the brother of Krishna? Does it refer to Ram, as in Sita Ram? Or does it refer to the union of Radha and Krishna? It's a topic for another discussion, but it's a very, very deep conversation. But yes, there are these 3 names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. These were taught by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu 500 years ago, and as the supreme method of deliverance for this particular age. It was Srila Prabhupada who brought that knowledge here to the Western world and all over India and all over the world for that matter. So Yamaraj continues, my dear servants, please do not approach such devotees, for they have fully surrendered to the lotus feet of the Supreme Being and are equal to everyone. This is the symptom of a person who has reached that place. They are equal to everyone. They see everyone as the same. This is called samadrishti. Brahma bhuta prasanatma. They are na sochati na kankshati. So they are in that divine space where they see God everywhere, in everything, in everyone. Please do not even go near them. They are always protected by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Such great souls are paramhamsas, are exalted beings. They have no taste for material enjoyment and drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. What is this honey? It is the sweet nectar that comes from surrender to God. This is not some difficult thing where you whip yourself into somehow, coming to God and punishing yourself in some way. No. It is about developing the highest enjoyment, the highest form of pleasure, the highest form of sweetness, the highest form of intoxication that cannot be found in this world. That sweetness that is found in surrendering to God's lotus feet. or to drinking and hearing about his name through the holes of our ears, that name, that has such nectar within it that it is the greatest enjoyment, the greatest pleasure, the greatest intoxicant of all. So he says, they have no taste for material enjoyment and drink the honey of the Lord's lotus feet. My dear servants, bring to me for punishment only those persons who are attached to worldly enjoyment. So now you know, if you are the one who's taking pleasure in the world, well, then you're on the path to Yamaraja to experience some pretty scary things. And listen, it's all, we've been there, done that plenty of times, and it's not about scaring you. But it's about letting you know that there is an alternative path. And that path is the path to drinking the nectar and the sweetness and the beauty of God's name, form, personality, activities, and all of that he does. Yamaraj says, those who are averse to the taste of that honey, who do not associate with devotees of God, whose tongues do not chant the holy name and qualities of Krishna, whose hearts do not remember the lotus feet of Krishna even once, and whose heads do not bow down before him, bring them to me. Then with head bowed, Yamaraj, considering himself and his servants to be offenders, begged the Supreme Being Vishnu for forgiveness. He realized the mistake of his servants and begged for forgiveness. Shukdev, the great sage, then said, my dear King Parikshit, the chanting of the holy name of Vishnu or Krishna is able to uproot even the reactions, the karmic reactions of the greatest sins. Therefore, this Sankirtan, this chanting, is the most auspicious activity in the entire universe. One who constantly hears and chants the holy name of God and his activities without offense can very easily attain the platform of pure, loving devotion, which can cleanse the impurities and dirt from one's heart. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said the same thing. He said, Cheto darpana marjanam, that the heart is like a mirror. Darpan. Cheta, consciousness, is like a mirror. Cheta darpana marjanam, just by cleaning it. Then we're able to see ourselves for who we are, we're able to see the world for what it is, and we're able to see God for who God is. But the impurities in our heart stop us from doing that. The dirt on the mirror of our heart. What is that impurity? That impurity is our desire to enjoy the world, that desire to be the enjoyer, which means to be God. Because God is actually the enjoyer of everything. This world was created by God, for the pleasure of God. We were created for the pleasure of God. And once we're clear about that, we understand that God, is the supreme enjoyer. He is the Purush, and we are the Prakriti. He is the masculine, we are the feminine. We are all to be enjoyed by him. So he says here, devotees who drink the nectar of the holy name of Krishna do not care at all for material activities, which are performed under the three modes of material nature and which bring only misery. They never give up the lotus feet of Krishna to return to material activities. On the other hand, those who are enchanted by lusty desires sometimes perform acts of atonement. Nevertheless, being incompletely purified, they return to sinful activities again and again. So you see, a lot of people will go to a temple, a church, a mosque, whatever it is, and they will beg for forgiveness. And they will perform acts of atonement. You know, the priest will sometimes say, chant so many Hail Marys or chant so many Our Fathers, and, you'll be forgiven. But he's not agreeing with this. Shukdev is not agreeing with this. Because he says they're still enchanted by lusty desires. They're still enchanted by wanting to enjoy this world. But when you see the world for what it is, just a combination of matter, everything you have. And all of matter, while it appears very attractive in the beginning, decays and degenerates and falls apart. Your beautiful car, your house, your body, your youth, all of it will degenerate. All of it will be reduced to nothing over time. It is time that teaches us the ultimate lesson that whatever we've been working for, all these achievements that we think we've had, all these things we think we've gained and achieved and acquired and become, will amount to nothing. And that's the ultimate lesson of the Bhagavatam. Because until we understand that lesson, it's very difficult to actually come to God. While you're still, it's like they say, you can't have your foot in two different boats. You've got to be able to lift your foot off one boat and come into the other. You've got to realize that this world is what it is. It's nature. It's dukhalayam, it is a place of suffering, and ashashvatam, which means it's temporary. And to realize that point is what the Bhagavatam is doing. It's a wake-up call. It's waking us up and it's saying, come on, see the world for what it is. See this life for what it is. It's not about trying to make us scared or make us worried or make us anxious, but it's just to open our eyes to really look at the reality. Because the truth is we came with nothing and we will leave with nothing. So what is all this that we are working for? And we're working so hard. Why not find out what lies beyond this world? What else is possible besides this world? And how is it possible to attain that? For that, this knowledge exists. Transcendental knowledge. So there are some questions now. I'd like to read them out. And one of them by Seeley says, calling out for God in times of great fear or desperation is a cry for divine help. Also, feelings of deep gratitude. People refer to God. Is cause or effect woven together in these conditions? Absolutely. I think that the world was designed to give us freedom on one hand, to experience anything and everything we want. But on the other hand, it was set up almost in such a way that we would bang our head against the wall of the world. We would realize that it's not giving us what we really want, that although we crave pleasure, though we crave happiness, we crave wonderful, life, we want to have a good life, our best self, all of that we want cannot be attained through this body-mind organism. There is another part of us, another dimension that lies within us, our soul, within which all that is possible. And when that soul is connected to that great soul, the divine soul, the highest being, then that connection is like a computer hooked up to the internet. Now its capabilities are immense and it can do amazing things. So in much the same way, the world leads us to realize that we're not getting what we want, that we're running into obstacles, that we're struggling. And so whether it is that we are in moments of fear or desperation, or whether it is that we are in moments of deep gratitude, in all cases we need to understand it's not about getting what you want. It's not about getting your desires met. God is not a Santa Claus who's here to give you what you want if you've been good and not give you if you've been bad. No, that's karma. That's karma. Karma is an automated system. God's not personally involved in karma. It's a system that's been set up by God. But God is not personally involved. God is not our Santa Claus. And that is not why we approach God. So, yes, all of these feelings, whether we have desperation or gratitude, are still about the world. We need to look beyond that. Whether I get what I want or I don't get what I want, I must still understand the nature of this world. And when I understand the nature of this world, that everything here is temporary, that everything here is a struggle, that everything here ultimately leads to suffering. Whatever I have, even if the best of house, if I have to leave it behind and go away from this world, then all that I worked for was for nothing. In which case, what am I doing? Why am I devoting all my energy to something that I'm going to lose anyway? See, that's the wake-up call. And with that wake-up call, we begin to understand, hey, I need to look into something more meaningful. She also asks, what if all sentient beings feel a source of divine connection? If so, is it instinctual or acquired through the rigors of life? I think all of us, and she's very right about this, we feel a source of divine connection. When you've been on a vacation, when you've been in a temple, a church, a mosque, any such place, either a holy place or a place of nature, we feel something higher, something greater, something that is more satisfying to us than all the pleasures of the world. It's quite fascinating. That's why we go on vacations. That's why we stop all our work and we take some time to just relax. And the ultimate relaxation is really to do nothing and to connect with nature, because nature is full of that energy of God and it fills us and we don't realize it. We don't realize that we are being filled by God. When you go for a vacation to some beautiful place, you're actually going to the temple of God. You're going out into nature. That is the temple of God. And you are feeling there the presence of God. You are in a state of worship. And you come back thinking that was a great place or that was a great experience. But it wasn't the place. It wasn't the experience. It was God you were feeling. So there was this divine connection and you were being drawn to it without even realizing it. So it's very instinctual. Our search for happiness is because it is a search for God. God is the ultimate source of all happiness. Why? How do I say that? You see, the Vedas say that our soul is Sat Chit Ananda, and God is also Sat Chit Ananda. Anadiradir Govinda. So he is the source of all pleasure, of all happiness, of all bliss. God is. And we get a fragment of that by connecting with ourselves, and by connecting with nature. We get a little taste of that. And so if that is a taste, then what would it be like to get the whole thing? And that's what this path is all about. The path of divine love is the path of really opening up to that source of everything, the source of all pleasure, the source of all joy, the source of all wisdom, the source of all peace, the source of all and everything that we've ever craved is God. So thank you for being here. And we will continue the Bhagavatam in the coming days, coming weeks rather. And please write down your comments. Please write down what your thoughts are. Feel free to agree or disagree. I'd love to read what you think, and I'd love to be able to respond to all your comments. I look forward to seeing you in the next one.